A new report put together by Iranian doctors cites a death toll of over 16,500 demonstrators across the country. This horrific number is the largest estimate seen so far, and according to the report, most of those killed by the Iranian regime are young adults under 30 years old. It says a further 330,000 have been injured in the regime's brutal crackdown against its own civilians. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump is calling for the first time for the end of Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei's rule, saying it's time to look for new leadership in Iran, calling Khamenei a sick man who should stop killing people. Trump described Iran as the worst place to live anywhere in the world and said the Supreme Leader's best decision was canceling the execution of over 800 political dissidents. Let's listen.
Arab and Israeli officials convinced you to not strike Iran?
Nobody convinced me. I convinced myself. You had yesterday scheduled over 800 hangings. They didn't hang anyone. They canceled the hangings. That had a big impact.
Now, amid chants of death to America, Iranian Supreme Leader Khamenei fired back at President Trump with this message. Listen here.
ما رئیس جمهور آمریکا رو مجرم می‌دانیم، هم به خاطر تلفات، هم به خاطر خسارات، هم به خاطر تهمتی که به ملت ایران زد. ماهیت فتنه این فتنه آمریکایی بود، واضح بود. آمریکایی‌ها برنامه‌ریزی کردن، فعالیت کردن. هدف آمریکا هم اینو من قاطع سریع با تجربه 40 و چند ساله در جمهوری اسلامی عرض میکنم. هدف آمریکا بلعیدن ایرانه.
And joining us now is Alireza Baranifard. He's an Iranian exile living abroad, a judoka, member of the International Refugee Team. Alireza, thank you very much for joining us today.
I want to say thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you very much. I know this is a very emotional, difficult subject for you. This new report that's come out with an estimate of over 16,000 dead Iranians brutally killed by the regime in Iran. What have you heard from people inside Iran in the last few days as this crackdown has intensified?
Actually, what are we hearing from inside Iran confirms that this number is not exaggerated. It may even be conservative. People have told me about the secret burials, families being forced into silence, and deaths that are never officially recorded. The regime controls information, but it cannot hide the truth forever. Almost every Iranian family knows someone who has been killed, imprisoned, or disappeared. Actually, even if you see these videos that I sent, that you can see in the other social medias, even if you count it one by one, by hand, you can count it. It's been like maybe it's more than 20,000 people. It's like I think maybe it's not the true number.
Wow, yeah, and this is massive numbers. And this tragedy, like many people in Iran, as you mentioned, has hit you personally, hasn't it? You have family members who were murdered by the regime. If you want to share that with us, I know it's a very personal matter.
Yeah, this is deeply personal for me. So my cousin and several close friends were killed by the Islamic regime. They were not criminals. They were ordinary people who believed in freedom and dignity. That's what all they wanted. Their only crime was refusing to stay silent. I carry their memory every day with me, and I will never forgive, I will never forget. And my pain is not unique. I am a family member of 90 million people of Iranians. Thousands of Iranian families are living in the same nightmare.
Yeah. And you yourself, you're in exile, right, from Iran. I mean, how did you leave Iran? Because if you were inside Iran now, it would be much harder for you to be speaking about these subjects. You wouldn't be allowed to. You wouldn't have the internet, the possibility they would come and get you. How did your personal story of a bit of being outside the country and now looking in from the outside?
Actually, they were arresting my mother, so I heard, because I don't dare to contact my family. It's really dangerous for them, because I did some like political activities in my own city. I try to help the people, and so I'm really scared to contact to my family, because maybe the government, the Iranian regime, is saying you and your family are the same. Like we are working together. But I don't really feel so good that if I want to contact with my family, and I really have no news from them. But I just have contact with the friends, but not with family or direct messages.
What do you hope is going to happen next?
So actually, the Iranians, they showed their own courage. And I really want to, first, I want to ask Mr. Trump and also Mr. Netanyahu. So actually, Bibi, dear Bibi, I have a message for Bibi. Dear Bibi, we all watched your videos. We all heard your messages. You said, you told us, if you go to the streets, we come to help you. You're supporting you. We all heard your messages. And now we are waiting for you. It's the message, it's the time to act. You should do something for us. Maybe the Cyrus the Great, the leader, the king of Persian Empire, when he was saving the Jews, maybe he knew one day the Jews will save his children. It's time to act now, dear Bibi. You should save your country.
Seems like we have a connection problem at the moment with Ali Reza.
I
Oh,
should
you're
try.
back with
I
us.
think yes, I'm back. Maybe it's about that. So I try to because it is very important to say it. I want to repeat it. Maybe Cyrus the Great, he already knew when he was helping the Jews, when he was saving the Jews. Maybe he already knew one day the Jews will save his children. Dear Bibi, it's time to act now. We need your help. You should save your country. You should save us. You should save all the world. This terrorist regime is not only for Iran. It's so dangerous for all around the world.
This call for action, do you think a lot of Iranians in the country want to see that happen? Because, there's a lot of discussion in the media and stuff, and a lot of people in the US, for example, who have more power than Israel and more ability to enact this change, that they're very scared of doing something, for example, a military strike, because it might lead to all kinds of consequences. You're here calling to do something. Do you think most Iranians share that sentiment?
So I'm like we have a big Iranian community in Germany, so everyone there has a connection with their family. So we are just waiting for a help. So this regime can be changed only by a military. So we cannot do it because they are armed until the teeth. They are here, so they are armed until the teeth, and we are defensive. We don't have any nothing. The people are just going to the streets and they are shooting them so easy. It's so easy to kill the people for them. They have no mercy to their own people, and they choose the militias to kill the people. So like the most of the suppressors, the oppressors, they are not the Iranians. They are the people from Afghanistan. They are the Fatimiyun or Zainabiyun from Afghanistan and the Iraqi Hashto-Shabi. They just bringing these people to Iran to have no mercy to their own people. Because many Iranians, I know, they didn't want to do this. They didn't want to do this to their own people. They didn't want to shoot their own people. But this regime, as I'm saying, so I'm really hoping everybody in Iran, they're waiting for a help. They're waiting for the help of US or Israel. Because, but
Right.
I think the BB is the most. So actually, I heard from many people from Iran, they said BB can be our Messiah.
Yeah, the way Cyrus was a messianic figure in the Bible. He's actually the only non-Jew in the Bible
Yes.
who has
Yes.
that kind of status for what he did for the Jews after the exile. And there's certainly, I can tell you also here in Israel, a lot of people are standing with the people of Iran. But like you said, it's difficult for them because they're there and they're defenseless and they're being killed by the regime. Defenseless people being shot in the streets. We're really hoping to see something positive come out of this. What are your hopes now for the coming days to see what happens?
First of all, I was watching some videos from the demonstration in Israel. It was in a city in Holoch, and I saw many Israelis, many Israelis who were supporting Iranians. So Iranians and the Israelis are the only non-Muslim and known Arab nations in Middle East. We should support each other, actually. So the future of Middle East can be changed. So our future is with Israel. So we can have the word. Why should we always fight each other? So why should we be the enemy of Israel? So the thing it is happening right now is just because of being enemy of Israel. So in this demonstration in Germany, I was holding the flag of Germany. Sorry, it's the flag of Israel in my hand with proud, because we are showing to the all around the world that we want a message. We are sending you a message of peace. We don't want this regime because this regime wants Israel to destroy. But it is not our goal. We don't. We love we love the Jews. We love the Israeli people.
Yeah, it's really a regime that's done so much harm to Israel, but first and foremost to the Iranian people themselves. And we heard Reza Pahlavi, for example, in a speech recently where he said that one of the first things that he would do if he ever was able to take power, to become the successor of this regime, is to normalize ties with Israel and end all of these proxy groups like Hezbollah and Hamas. I think it's something that everybody is hoping for, both in Iran and Israel, is to be friends again, as we should be.
Of course. So we have more than 2,500 years solidarities and friendship. So it should be come back. So the Jews and the Iranians, they belong to each other. They were more than thousands of years friendship. So, but it's only about 47 years that it's like this. First, yesterday, after our demonstration in Germany for Iran, I saw a Palestinian demonstration who were holding a Khamenei picture. They love him. They love him. They love him. I cannot stand the people who love the regime who is killing my people. The important for them is just Palestine. They don't care about the killing the other people. They don't care about the kills or murder, about decency, different things. The only important thing for them is Palestine. So not Iran or not wherever. I'm really speechless right now.
Yeah, I understand. It's definitely a frustrating thing to see, and especially so much suffering happening right now in Iran. But I think that was a very powerful message for a better future, and of course, a better future between Israel and Iran, and a free Iran. I think it's something that many people who are watching this right now are praying and hoping to see in the near future. I wish safety to all your family members. Ali Reza Barani Fard, thank you so much for coming on IOTV and sharing your story.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held a phone conversation with Russian President Vladimir Putin as regional tensions over Iran continue. According to the Kremlin, the two leaders discussed developments in Iran and the broader Middle East. Putin offered Russia's assistance in mediating and said he favors stepping up political and diplomatic efforts to maintain regional stability and security. This is how the Kremlin described the Netanyahu-Putin phone call. Listen here.
Помимо текущих дел внутрироссийских, сегодня первую половину дня президент во многом посвятил ситуации вокруг Ирана. Сегодня уже состоялся телефонный разговор с премьер-министром Израиля Нетаньяху. Помощь не только Ирану, но и всему региону и делу региональной стабильности и мира Россия оказывает и сейчас, вот в том числе и благодаря президентской активности, которая направлена на то, чтобы способствовать деэскалации напряженности.
So that was Dmitry Peskov, who was the spokesperson for the Kremlin. Now, as tensions between Iran, the U.S., and Israel remain high, the IDF says they are operating at peak readiness on all fronts, while urging the public to remain calm and rely only on official information. IDF spokesman Brigadier General Efi Deflin says the military has been closely monitoring developments in recent weeks, with the Chief of Staff holding continuous situation assessments with all relevant authorities. The IDF has strengthened capabilities and increased readiness along all borders, preparing for a wide range of scenarios, both defensive and offensive. Let's listen
לאורך
here.
השבועות האחרונים, וביתר שאת בימים האחרונים, אנחנו עוקבים אחר ההתפתחויות באזור. בהתאם לכך, הרמטכ"ל מקיים מערכות מצב שוטפות עם כל הגורמים הרלוונטיים. האחריות שלנו בצה"ל היא לנהל את המצב בצורה שקולה, מקצועית ואחראית. אנחנו פועלים במוכנות מלאה למגוון רחב של תרחישים. בשבועות האחרונים חיזקנו יכולות והגברנו את המוכנות בכל הגבולות. כפי שאמר הרמטכ"ל אתמול בביקור במערך ההגנה האווירית, חשוב שכל אזרח בישראל ידע, צה"ל ערוך ומוכן כל העת, ובאופן נרחב, גם בהגנה וגם בהתקפה. אנחנו מבינים היטב את תחושת אי-הוודאות והדריכות שנוצרה בימים האחרונים, שבהם השיח הציבורי והתקשורתי עוסק בהתפתחויות האזוריות. זה טבעי וזה מובן לחלוטין. יחד עם זאת, אני מבקש מכם, הסתמכו אך ורק על הודעות דובר צה"ל והערוצים הרשמיים. גלו אחריות, הימנעו מהפצת שמועות אשר מעוררות דאגה בקרב הציבור. אני שב ומדגיש, אין שינוי בהנחיות פיקוד העורף.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu summoned his war cabinet for an urgent meeting this morning amid growing tensions with the Trump administration over the makeup of the new Board of Peace in Gaza. At the heart of the storm, the board's executive committee, which is expected to include senior representatives from Turkey and Qatar, two countries seen in Jerusalem as some of Israel's sharpest critics during the war in Gaza and open supporters of Hamas. Netanyahu's office says Israel was not consulted on the move, calling it a step that contradicts Israeli policy. The executive board is expected to play a central role in overseeing post-war Gaza, operating under a broader body led by President Trump, a development raising alarm bells in Jerusalem. Israel instructed Foreign Minister Gideon Saar to lodge formal objections with Washington, but a senior U.S. official fired back, saying this is our show, not his show, and making it clear that the plan is moving forward. And to discuss all of this, joining us now is Professor Gerald Steinberg, the founder and president of NGO Monitor. Thank you very much for being with us, Gerald. So this latest development with the Board of Peace and the Qatar and Turkish influence on the Board of Peace, how influential, how problematic is this for Israel, and can Israel do anything about it?
I'd like to start by saying a few words about Iran and what we've just heard.
Yep.
And to say dramatic is very much of an understatement. It's much more than dramatic. This is real mass killing. It's real slaughter. It's real massacres by a regime which is, by any definition, evil, immoral, extremely violent. And the cooperation that they have received from many countries for decades is something that now we are seeing the results of. There's a great deal of hypocrisy also. I follow the activities and the agendas of groups that claim to promote human rights and humanitarian values, groups which are extremely powerful, like Doctors Without Borders, Medicine Sans Frontières, Human Rights Watch, Amnesty. They've only lately started to wake up. They should have been leading in the gathering international support for, these are not demonstrators, for the Iranian people that we see day to day who are not just risking their lives, they're paying with their lives in mass numbers. This is a complete failure of what's called the human rights institutions around the world. The United Nations, not one special session, not one serious effort to put pressure on the regime in Tehran to stop killing and to leave the stage. And that's what the Iranian people are demanding. That's a huge failure, and it's one that cannot be underestimated. We now, yes, you asked me about what's going on in Gaza, and I have to say there's a contrast. There is now a three-level, what I call a theater of peace, and I'm not trying to be too sarcastic, but I think that it's something that really has to be seen much more as a political set of statements, as a series of acts to create an impression than substantive. First of all, this is supposed to be phase 2 of the Gaza peace plan. Well, phase 1 said all the hostages and their bodies be returned. And one, Ron Gvili, is not back. So therefore, they're right there. The Trump administration, Steve Witkoff and others are violating the pledge that was made not just to his family, but to the Israeli people. And that's fundamental. Okay, just one person, maybe they can't find his body. That one person is extremely important to every Israeli. The structure that's been established is something very hard to grasp as what they could possibly do. And I'll say very briefly that I've been involved in all sorts of peace plans. I've sat with officials, with ambassadors, with State Department people, with secretaries of state, with European foreign ministers for, I would say, close to 40 years. And I've seen them come and go and be changed. And very few of them are very serious. Very few of them really had the depth that's necessary to deal with the core issues, fundamentally Palestinian terror and Palestinian rejectionism. So what is this Board of Peace supposed to do? This multi-member Board of Peace, and then there's an executive committee, as you mentioned, where Qatar and Erdogan or Turkey, a representative from Turkey, the foreign minister, are supposed to be involved. And then there's a Palestinian technocratic executive committee, which is supposed to be running Gaza. What does that mean? We now have Israeli troops still holding more than half of Gaza, or about half of Gaza territory. They're still being attacked, and Israel's responding. There are still many, we don't know how many, kilometers of underground tunnels. Those are Hamas fortresses. They all have to be checked and destroyed. Who's going to do that? And what's Hamas going to do if a bunch of foreign forces or Israeli forces go in and look for the tunnels underneath the hospitals, all war crimes, underneath the residences, underneath the schools, underneath the mosques? All of Gaza has to be cleared of those terror tunnels and all the other frameworks that Hamas used when it planned and executed October 7th, so they don't do it again. I don't see how this structure, with all of its different levels and Tony Blair and all these other VIPs and Mark Carney from Canada, what do they have to offer for this? And I have a lot of admiration for what Tony Blair has done. I think he's one of the few worldwide leaders who understands, has some depth and understanding what this conflict is all about. I certainly don't think that, again, the Prime Minister of Canada has shown any depth at all in understanding. It's there. He's there as part of the theater. We certainly have to be concerned about having the Turkish government headed by Erdogan, which is in some ways inheriting, if we see the end of the Iranian regime and its hate towards Israel, we have to worry about what Turkey's going to do. Qatar is the main sponsor of the Muslim Brotherhood. They've paid billions to subvert American universities and NGOs, to run NGOs that have been leading the Eighth Front, which is the demonization of Israeli anti-Semitism. We've seen the results of that around the world. Qatar can't both say we're doing peace and we're promoting these kinds of hate. So this whole thing to me looks like more of a shell that's designed to create a theater, the impression of doing something. But I can understand why Mr. Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, and other Israeli officials are concerned that maybe it's more than a theater. Maybe it really will end up doing serious damage.
Right. So definitely a strong indictment there of this Board of Peace and the people who make up the Board of Peace. But we see that Israel, tried to send a foreign minister to Washington to plead Israel's case and explain all the things that you're explaining here. But the U.S. basically saying, we're moving forward and that's it. That's our decision. That's the advantage and disadvantage of Trump, is he takes strong action and sometimes it favors Israel and it's good, but in this case it doesn't. So what can Israel do in this situation?
Well, I think recognizing the reality, you just said it, I think that Prime Minister Netanyahu is very aware of that reality. Trump is the world's strongman, and he has his own paths, what he wants to do and how he wants to do it. We can be cynical and say he wants a Nobel Peace Prize, or we can be more straightforward and say that Trump and his entourage, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner and others, think that they actually have a path that will change the Middle East. Just like the people who designed the Oslo, what Israelis all call the Oslo disaster under the period of Bill Clinton, thought that they had the magic keys to peace. We have to be very wary of that, but you can't ignore it. You have to play the game. If it's a game or a theater, then you have to be part of it. So it's important to be part of it, to state Israel's case, and to do the best that we can to say, okay, we'll cooperate with this. Over here, we've got to do certain other things. In the last 2.5 years, and if we go back further to the first Trump administration, in many cases, both Trump and the people around him have been willing not only to listen to the Israeli case, but also to act in a manner that's consistent with what Israel points out needs to be done if you're going to take this whole process seriously. So I wouldn't give up on it, but I do think that it's important to emphasize these points when Gideon Sar, the foreign minister, goes to Washington. I will say that I don't know if Ron Dermer is going to be part of this attempt to explain to the Americans why this process has some very, very deep failures in it. But certainly when Dermer was in position as a minister, he was able to talk to the Trump administration people and really masters the details. And perhaps he will also become involved as necessary in this, even though he deserves a break from the tension and the stress and the attacks that were waged against him. So I think that Israel does have a reasonable chance of making the case, but it has to be made repeatedly and strongly, and not just convincing in Washington, but also throughout Europe, which is going to be a harder job.
Right. And meanwhile, as you mentioned earlier, you had some very strong words about the sort of human rights community, if we can call it, globally with what's going on in Iran. I mean, in Israel, people have been exasperated with these organizations for many years. Also, after October 7th, they were very slow and in some cases failed completely to condemn so many of the actions that were happening, to speak up for the hostages. And now the same thing is happening with Iran. I mean, what type of role do these organizations play in distorting the worldview on Iran and on Israel?
Well, we'll start with Israel. They're mostly silent, and they have been silent for years on Iran. Opposite of Israel, they have been leading the demonization, the genocide with accusation, the lies, which is really Holocaust inversion. It's really a blood libel. And the NGOs, Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, Doctors Without Borders, MSF, there are literally dozens of groups like that, Oxfam. They're all guilty. They're guilty of promoting lies and anti-Semitism and hate propaganda. I think one of the most important things that can be done is people stop giving money to them. Foundations stop giving money to them. If the sources of their funding and their power, Médecins Sans Frontières gets $2.4 billion a year. Some of it from the government of Canada, some of it from the government of Switzerland. I think, by the way, one of the things that if I was in charge of the Board of Peace, I would say to Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, when your government stops funding groups like this, particularly Doctors Without Borders, brothers, that are primarily engaged in propaganda, not in providing medical services, not in fairly promoting the basic interests of the people, the medical facilities they need, so much money goes into hate propaganda and lies like the genocide claim. So stop giving the money. All these foundations, all the individuals, I've had dozens of people in the last few weeks as I've been writing about these organizations that have said we're stopping their funding, and some of this has been quite public. They need to be, the spigots need to be turned off until they fundamentally change. Human Rights Watch, which is supposed to, I think is the anchor of what I call the human rights NGO industry, has half a dozen people at least, probably more, full-time in demonizing Israel, led by a gentleman by the name of Omar Shakir, whose entire life is hostility, not just hostility, demonizing Israel. They don't have a single full-time researcher, last time I checked, on Iran. And they haven't for 20 years. They have part-timers, they have a mini desk, they produce almost no reports. The repression, the violence, that's not just the last few weeks, but it's been going on since 1979. Human Rights Watch doesn't care because they're fundamentally anti-Western, anti-Israeli, anti-American, and they are a propaganda group, and yet they're considered to be highly respected. So all those things need to be addressed.
Right.
Amnesty International is another one.